The puppy was shaking, barely bigger than a shoe, but she wouldn't stop following the doctor. Step after step, through the cold hospital parking lot, down the sterile white halls, she stayed right behind him. He thought she was just lost, maybe hungry. But what he found out next, it crushed him, because this tiny dog wasn't lost at all. She was trying to save someone. Dr. Adam Whitaker had seen his share of long nights and life-or-death moments. Being a trauma surgeon at a downtown hospital meant chaos wasn't rare, it was routine. But nothing in his years of training, no textbook, no emergency, no code blue, had ever prepared him for the moment a trembling puppy changed everything. He didn't know it that morning, but this one little animal was about to make him feel something he hadn't felt in years, helpless. And it all started with a quiet walk to his car. It was one of those mornings where everything felt too quiet, the kind of morning where the world seemed to hold its breath, not out of peace, but as if something was about to go wrong. The sun hadn't yet climbed over the city skyline. A faint, grayish-blue hue painted the sky, and the parking lot of the regional hospital sat mostly in silence. The few cars scattered around were remnants of the overnight shift, nurses finishing their charts, janitors preparing for another long day, and a single vending machine buzzing near the emergency exit. Dr. Adam Blake moved like a ghost through that silence. His scrubs were wrinkled, his eyes red, his hair disheveled. He had just survived one of the hardest nights of his life. 3 emergency surgeries, 2 of which hadn't gone well. One had ended in tragedy, and the weight of that loss clung to him like a second skin. He was 35 years old, but nights like these made him feel ancient. His keys jingled softly in his hand as he walked, dragging his feet toward his car. In his other hand was a coffee he didn't remember buying, and in his chest, a heart that felt heavier than ever. He didn't hear the sound at first. It wasn't loud, just the faintest tapping, like someone softly drumming their fingers on a counter. But it was enough to make him stop mid-step. He turned his head slowly. There, at the edge of the light thrown by a flickering street lamp, stood a figure so small he almost missed it. A puppy, alone, thin, still. She wasn't moving toward him. She wasn't barking or wagging her tail. She just stood there, under the dying orange glow, like a forgotten toy. Her fur was dirty, tangled with tiny burrs. One ear flopped sideways, while the other pointed straight up, giving her a look of constant curiosity or confusion. But it was her eyes that froze Adam in place. They weren't the wide, joyful eyes you'd expect from a puppy. They were deep, solemn, haunted, the kind of eyes that had seen too much for someone, or something, so small. He blinked, thinking maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. He was exhausted. Hallucinations weren't unheard of after a shift like that. But when he looked again, she was still there, still staring. Adam gave a weak chuckle. Must have wandered off from somewhere, he muttered, continuing toward his car. Someone's got to be looking for you. He unlocked the door and tossed his keys on the passenger seat. But before he slid in, he looked back. The puppy had moved. She was now sitting directly behind his car, perfectly still, perfectly silent, just watching. Adam sighed, rubbed his temples. "You're making this really hard, kid," he whispered. "I'm not in the mood to rescue anyone today." But then something strange happened. He knelt down slowly and extended his hand, palm up. "Come here, girl," he said, voice soft. She didn't move right away. She studied him, her little chest rising and falling in rapid breaths. Then, inch by inch, she stepped forward, not running, not bounding with excitement, cautiously, hesitantly, as if each step was a decision. When she finally reached him, she didn't lick his hand or wag her tail. She simply laid down beside his feet, curled into a ball, and closed her eyes. It shattered something in Adam. Here was this fragile little creature, discarded and starving, putting all her trust in him without asking for anything in return. He reached down and gently picked her up, half expecting her to squirm or yelp, but she didn't. She melted into his arms like she had been waiting her whole life for this moment. And for a few seconds, Adam just stood there, holding her against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against his ribs. Then came the first sign something was very wrong. She was warm, too warm. He could feel the heat radiating off her little body, even through his scrubs. He frowned and touched her nose. Hot, far hotter than it should be. "Fever," he whispered, alarm rising in his voice. "You're burning up." He looked around the empty parking lot, suddenly feeling the clock ticking louder in his ears. Okay, let's figure this out." Adam turned back toward the hospital doors, but the automatic glass wouldn't open. He had just clocked out, and hospital policy meant he couldn't bring an animal inside unless it was a registered therapy dog or service animal. He tried knocking softly. No answer. The staff inside were probably rushing through shift change, prepping rooms, dealing with patients. Nobody would notice one off-duty doctor with a stray in his arms. He thought about calling the nearest vet. Then he remembered it was Sunday. Most clinics wouldn't open until 9 a.m. That was 3 hours away. The puppy let out a tiny wheeze in his arms. Not a cry, not a whimper, just a raspy exhale, like breathing was hard work. Panic flickered in his chest. Adam had spent the last 12 hours saving human lives. But right now, there was only one life that mattered to him, and she was slipping away. He rushed to his car, cradling her like a newborn. The inside smelled like old coffee and hospital-grade hand sanitizer. He set her gently on the passenger seat, took off his jacket, and wrapped her in it. "Hang in there, sweetheart," he murmured. "I've got you." He grabbed his phone and searched for emergency animal hospitals. There was one, Midtown 24-hour pet clinic, still open, 14 miles away. He didn't waste a second. The car roared to life. The tires screeched as he backed out. His coffee spilled on the floor, but he didn't care. Every second mattered now. The drive was nerve-wracking. Red lights felt like insults. Slow drivers were enemies. All the while, the puppy lay motionless, wrapped in his jacket, breathing shallowly. Adam kept glancing over, whispering to her, "You're gonna be okay, all right? Just hang on. I've seen tougher patients. You've got this." But with every glance, his confidence crumbled. Her little body was trembling now, even under the fabric. And then, when he turned onto the freeway, she stopped breathing. Just for a moment, a single terrifying moment. Her tiny chest stopped rising. No, come on." Adam reached over, carefully tapped her side. She gasped. And just like that, the tears came. Not from her, from him. Tears he hadn't shed in years. "I don't even know your name," he whispered brokenly. "But please don't die." He reached the clinic with minutes to spare. The parking lot was empty. The building was small, but the sign glowed bright. Open 24/7, emergencies welcome. He slammed the door shut and sprinted inside, the puppy limp in his arms. "Help," he shouted. "I need help." A young vet tech rushed out from behind the counter. "What happened?" "She's got a fever really high. She stopped breathing for a second. Please, she needs help now." They rushed her to the back. Adam was left standing alone, hands shaking, jacket soaked in sweat. Minutes crawled by. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly. Somewhere, a dog barked behind a closed door. Adam felt like the walls were closing in. Finally, a woman in blue scrubs stepped out. The vet. She looked calm, but serious. "Are you the one who brought in the puppy?" Adam stood. "Yes." "Is she okay?" The vet paused. "She's alive, but she's not out of the woods yet. Severe dehydration, malnourishment. She's also got a mild respiratory infection, probably from prolonged exposure. Fever's dangerously high." Adam's voice cracked. "Can she be saved?" The vet nodded gently. "She's a fighter, but it's going to take time and care." He exhaled, finally letting his body slump into the nearest chair. That's when the questions began. Did he know her history? Was she vaccinated? Was she chipped? He answered no to everything. She was a mystery, a dirty, trembling mystery who had wandered into his life like a whisper. And already, Adam couldn't imagine leaving her behind. Over the next few hours, they worked together, Adam and the vet, to stabilize her. They cleaned her wounds, brought her fever down, started 4 fluids. She was so tiny, her entire arm looked like a twig wrapped in gauze. Adam stayed the whole time. He refused to leave, because deep down, something told him this wasn't random. This wasn't just a stray dog with bad luck. No, this puppy had come to him for a reason, and he was going to find out why. But the real story, the miracle that would change everything, that hadn't even begun yet. Adam walked back into the hospital, cradling the frail little body against his chest like a newborn. The fluorescent lights inside the emergency entrance were harsh compared to the quiet gloom outside. Nurses glanced up from the desk, eyes widening as they noticed the bundle in his arms. "You're back," one of them asked, eyebrows raised. "I thought your shift ended." Adam gave a half smile. "It did, but she found me." He motioned toward the puppy, still nestled quietly against his chest. The nurse leaned forward and gasped softly. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. Adam could feel the warmth of the puppy's body against his scrubs, but it was faint, too faint, like she didn't have much strength left. She hadn't made a sound since he picked her up, not a bark, not a whimper, just that deep, fragile silence that said more than noise ever could. "She okay?" another nurse asked. Adam frowned, already thinking clinically. Dehydrated, starving probably. "I think she's been out for a while." He glanced down again. The puppy's eyes fluttered open at the sound of his voice, and she gave him that same pleading look. as if she knew she was in trouble and knew this might be her only chance. "She's tiny," the nurse said softly. "What are you gonna do?" Adam hesitated. He hadn't thought that far ahead. "I don't know, but I couldn't leave her." They cleared out a small treatment room, normally used for quick checks on minor patients, and laid the puppy gently on a padded table. Adam began examining her carefully, his movements slow and gentle. He checked her paws, her belly, her gums, her breathing. Every new detail made his heart drop a little further. Her paw pads were scraped raw. Her fur was tangled and sticky, matted with dried mud, and something else, something darker. Blood? No, it wasn't hers. Adam's hands froze as he gently parted the fur near her shoulders. There it was again, a smear of something dark reddish-brown, dried, flaky. It wasn't just dirt. His breath caught. There was more. Along her side, down her little legs. The puppy hadn't just wandered the streets. She had been somewhere no puppy should be. And whatever had happened there, it had left marks. Is that blood?" the nurse asked from behind him, her voice barely a whisper. Adam nodded, his face pale. "Yeah, but not hers. She's not wounded." He pulled on gloves, then gently wiped at the patches, with gauze soaked in saline. As the dirt came off, more evidence appeared. Tiny flecks of something metallic, rust, dust, and then, something that chilled him. Stuck beneath the puppy's collarless neck fur was a sliver of yellow fabric. He pulled it free carefully. It was stiff, frayed, and printed with faded black letters. He squinted. The letters were almost worn off, but one word stood out. Hazmat. Adam stared at the word. The puppy whimpered. "Where the hell did you come from?" he murmured. This wasn't just a stray. This puppy had come from somewhere dangerous, somewhere that required hazardous material protection. But how? He picked up his phone and texted an old friend, Dr. Lila Harper, who worked in pathology and often assisted the city's forensic teams. "Lila, need a consult. ASAP. Possible exposure case. Dog brought in with strange material on fur. Also found fabric with hazmat tag." He attached a photo of the cloth and hit send. Then he looked down at the puppy again. "Who left you out there, huh?" he whispered. "And what were you trying to tell me?" Because it was clear now. She hadn't just followed him. She had come looking for someone. Over the next hour, Adam cleaned her up. He gave her a tiny amount of water, then a syringe of electrolyte solution. She licked at it weakly. At one point, he tried to set her down on a blanket, but she crawled back toward his lap with trembling paws. She wanted him near, needed him near. He wrapped her in a towel and just held her. His exhaustion faded, not completely, but enough to push it down, enough to stay awake. And then his phone buzzed. Lila Harper. "Adam, what is this? Where did you find this puppy?" He texted back the story quickly. How she'd appeared outside the hospital, the blood on her fur, the hazmat label. A minute later, she called. "Adam," Lila said, her voice tight. "That cloth, it looks like it came off a containment suit. I don't know which agency yet, but if it's legit, that's not something you find in the garbage. Do you think someone dumped her? Possibly, but why would they leave a dog covered in blood and hazmat material outside a hospital? That's not random." Adam's stomach turned. What if she escaped from somewhere? There was a pause. "I'm coming over," Lila said. "Stay put and keep her isolated for now." An hour later, Lila walked into the hospital, still in her lab coat. She had a testing kit with her, cotton swabs, sealed tubes, gloves. Adam gently handed her the stained towel and gauze, plus the piece of cloth. She took samples from the puppy's fur too. "I'm going to rush these to the lab," she said. "I'll pull some strings." But Adam, yeah, if that tag is authentic, this could be big. Like government-level containment big. Adam glanced down at the puppy again. She was sleeping now, her tiny frame curled up on the blanket, peaceful, innocent. How could something so small be connected to something so serious? And what had she survived? Outside, the morning had fully broken. Sirens could be heard in the distance. Delivery trucks rumbled past. The hospital staff was beginning to swap shifts. But inside that quiet room, everything had changed. Adam had found more than a lost puppy. He had stumbled onto a mystery, and she, this tiny, shivering creature, might be the only witness. But what had she seen? Over the next several hours, Adam stayed with her. He called a friend at a local animal rescue and asked for temporary supplies, puppy food, a small crate, shampoo. While they waited for lab results, he bathed her carefully in warm water. She didn't resist. She didn't bark. She just leaned against him, like she was finally safe. Each minute he spent with her, something changed inside him. Maybe it was the quiet trust in her eyes. Maybe it was the way she never took her gaze off him, as if she knew he was the only one who could help her. Or maybe it was something deeper, something that had been missing in Adam's life, for a long time. What no one knew, what Adam had never really talked about, was that years ago, he'd lost someone. His younger sister, Kayla. She died from an infection after a freak accident, one that could have been prevented if she'd gotten help sooner. Adam had been in medical school then. He hadn't made it in time. He'd blamed himself ever since. And holding this puppy, something clicked. It was irrational, maybe, but he felt Kayla in that room. The innocence, the need for protection, the plea in the eyes. It felt like a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Lila called that evening. Adam, she said, we need to talk. What did you find? There are traces of an experimental compound on her fur. It's a bioagent used in some of the city's top secret labs. The cloth came from a government-contracted cleanup crew. And get this, there was a breach 2 nights ago in one of the restricted zones downtown. Adam sat down, heart racing. They never released the information publicly, but your puppy, she was there. How did she get out? We don't know, but if she got out, what else did? Adam sat frozen in the on-call room, the phone pressed to his ear. The puppy curled up beside him in a soft fleece blanket. Her breathing was soft and shallow, but steady. She trusted him now, completely. But Lila's words echoed in his mind like a siren. There was a breach 2 nights ago in one of the restricted zones downtown, and your puppy was there. He looked at her again, so small, so innocent. Her tiny body didn't look like a threat, but she had come from something big, something dangerous, something the city didn't even want the public to know about. And the most terrifying part? She might not have come alone. Lila explained it quietly, her voice low and urgent, like she was watching over her shoulder as she spoke. The lab she mentioned wasn't just any research facility. It was a level 4 biocontainment site, a place where the most dangerous pathogens in the world were handled under layers of security. Things like hemorrhagic fevers, genetically modified bacteria, even experimental compounds that weren't supposed to exist outside of black-budget research programs. The breach hadn't made the news. The area had been sealed off immediately, and the government classified the incident within hours. According to what Lila dug up, stuff she shouldn't have even had access to. An animal containment unit had been compromised. A transport truck carrying lab animals had flipped. Some survived, some didn't. And one small, unidentified creature, a puppy, had disappeared into the night. Adam's chest tightened. It all made sense now. The trembling, the blood, the tag with hazmat, the way the puppy had zeroed in on him. Of all people, she hadn't just been following any human. She had been searching for someone who could help her. Someone who could understand what she couldn't say. And somehow, in the chaos of her escape, she had made it to the one place in the city where someone still had the heart to care. A hospital, Adam's hospital, and Adam himself. It was just past midnight when Adam heard the sound, a low, hard knock on the staff entrance door. 3 short raps, then silence. He frowned. The front entrance had a security team, but this side entrance? Only employees knew about it. He walked slowly down the hallway, the puppy still wrapped in a towel against his chest. She lifted her head as they moved, ears twitching alert. Adam peered through the security peephole. 2 men stood outside, dark suits, blank expressions, no badges, but their eyes didn't look curious. They looked hungry for answers. He hesitated. Then the taller one held something up to the camera, an official government ID, Department of Emergency Biological Affairs. Adam's heart sank. They were here for the dog. They introduced themselves politely enough. Agent Rourke and Agent Kane. Clean-cut, stone-faced, clinical. The kind of people who didn't blink when talking about casualties. Dr. Adam Keller? Rourke asked, voice smooth like glass. Adam nodded. We understand you had contact with a stray animal earlier this evening, one that appeared outside your facility. He hesitated. I didn't report anything. We know, Kane replied. That's why we're here. There was a long pause. She's stable, Adam said quietly. Dehydrated, malnourished, but no wounds. I've begun fluids and mild feeding. You tested her? Rourke asked. I had a pathologist friend take some samples. Rourke raised an eyebrow. You realize that's a breach of protocol. Adam's expression didn't change. I didn't know there was a protocol. Kane stepped forward. May we see the animal? That question hung in the air. Adam's grip on the towel bundle tightened. The puppy stirred at the sound of the stranger's voice. She whimpered, just a little, but it was enough. Adam looked down. Her tiny eyes found his. There was fear in them now. Recognition. She knew. She remembered. These were the voices, the scent, the presence, the people from wherever she'd come from. And she was terrified. Adam stepped back. I'm sorry, he said slowly. She's in isolation, and until I know she's not a risk to anyone here, including you, I'm not releasing her. Kane frowned. That's not your call, doctor. But Adam met his gaze. Then get a court order. Because I took an oath, and until you prove she's a threat, she stays under my care." The room tensed. Rourke leaned in. "You have no idea what she was exposed to," he said, his voice sharper now. "You don't know where she's been, what she might be carrying. If she's contaminated, you're endangering yourself, this hospital, and everyone inside it." "I've taken precautions," Adam said. "That won't matter if there's an outbreak." "I've read your reports," Adam replied, calling their bluff. Lila forwarded the findings. Whatever she was exposed to, it's dormant, inert. The lab tests didn't show active pathogens. That made them flinch. They hadn't expected him to have the data. Rourke's jaw clenched. "You're playing with fire, Doctor." Adam's voice softened, but his eyes were steel. "No, I'm protecting a life, something you forgot how to do." The agents left, not with words of peace, but with the promise that they'd return, with reinforcements, with authorization, and possibly with force. Adam sat in the staff break room long after they'd gone. The puppy had fallen asleep again, curled up in his lap, safe for now, but the weight of the coming decision pressed down on him. He could give her up. They'd take her away. They'd run tests, possibly dissect her, try to trace every cell in her body, figure out how she survived, what she knew. If she carried something that could be used, or contained, she'd never see daylight again. She'd never feel grass, or sunshine, or love. But if he ran, what would happen to her then? To himself? Would they chase him? Would they make him disappear too? By 3 a.m., Adam had made his choice. He texted one person, "Lila, I'm taking her somewhere safe. I need a 12-hour window. Can you stall them?" Lila replied within seconds, "Yes, you owe me dinner and possibly a federal felony defense. But yes." He smiled just a little. Then he packed a duffel. He bundled the puppy gently into a crate lined with towels and hand warmers. He left a handwritten letter for the hospital director, explaining that he was taking emergency personal leave and promising to return. He slipped out through the back stairwell, out into the dark. No cameras, no alarms, just one man and one tiny soul depending on him. He drove for hours, past the highways, past the suburbs, past where the streetlights ended, to a cabin, an old one his family used to own when he was a kid, hidden near the base of the mountains, surrounded by trees and silence. He laid her down on a thick quilt near the fireplace. She sniffed the air. Her tiny tail wagged for the first time. She was free, and for now she was safe. It happened 3 days later. Adam had been monitoring her closely, taking samples, watching her vitals. But something strange occurred. Her vitals didn't just stabilize, they strengthened. Rapidly, her immune markers were off the charts. Her cellular regeneration was accelerating. She had no signs of illness. None. In fact, her body was repairing itself at a rate he'd never seen in an animal that size. The thing she'd been exposed to, whatever it was, hadn't harmed her. It had made her stronger, smarter, and something else, too. Adam couldn't sleep. The realization swirled in his mind like a storm. This puppy, this tiny creature the world had cast out, the one the government saw as a liability, was something beyond explanation, beyond science as he understood it. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a breakthrough. But more than that, she was a soul, and she trusted him. So he gave her a name, Hope. In the days that followed, Adam began documenting everything. Not because he wanted to turn her in. He had no intention of ever letting her fall into a lab again, but because her biology needed to be understood. She could help people. She might be the key to something bigger. Her white blood cell count suggested she was immune to a dozen known pathogens, and not just immune, but seemingly capable of processing and neutralizing them. Her brain scans, taken with a portable EEG he kept in the cabin, showed activity patterns resembling early childhood humans. She understood things, not in the way a trained dog did, in the way a child does. She responded to her name. She remembered the sound of a door opening and would run to it, expecting Adam. She cuddled up to him every night. Her eyes followed his every move. She even started whining when he took too long to return from gathering firewood. And one night, just as he was drifting off, she placed a paw on his chest. A small, gentle touch, like she was saying, "Thank you." But peace never lasts forever. Lila texted again. "They've issued a warrant. They know you ran. They know you're with the dog. Adam, they're coming." He sat in silence for a long time. It had only been 8 days. 8 days since a tiny puppy walked into his life and turned it upside down. 8 days since he stopped being just a doctor and became something more. Her protector, her voice, and maybe her only chance. He watched her sleep that night. The firelight danced across her fur. She looked peaceful, completely unaware that men in suits with syringes and guns were looking for her. He thought of what it would mean to keep running, to live off the grid, to disappear. Could he do it? Would she want that? Hope stirred in her sleep, her paw twitching. A dream, or maybe a memory. Then she opened her eyes and looked at him. There was something in her gaze that hadn't been there before. Not fear, understanding, as if she knew, as if she was telling him, it's okay, do what you must. The next morning, Adam packed a car, not to run, but to go back to the city, back to the hospital. He drove straight to Lila's lab. No disguises, no lies, just Hope in the front seat, looking out the window like she was ready. They met in the parking lot. You sure about this? Lila asked. Adam nodded. If we hide her, they win. But if we tell the world, if we show people who she really is, they won't be able to make her disappear. Lila looked at the tiny pup. You're betting everything on the kindness of strangers. Adam smiled. No, I'm betting on hope. They released a video that afternoon. A simple clip, Adam speaking into the camera, explaining the situation, the breach, the truth, the science. And then he held up Hope, and she licked his face. The internet erupted. Within hours, the video had gone viral. News outlets demanded interviews. Medical journals reached out for data. People flooded the comments with love, donations, questions. The government tried to control the narrative, but it was too late. The world knew, and the world chose Hope. Of course, they still tried to take her, but Adam filed an injunction. He showed the test results, the immunity markers, the neurological scans. He argued that she was not just a stray or a lab sample. She was a sentient being, deserving of rights. The courtroom was packed. Outside, hundreds of people stood with signs. She's not a specimen. She's Hope. Protect our Paws. Hope belongs with her human. Adam stood before the judge and said one final thing. This puppy walked into my life, carrying something we don't fully understand. But she also carried something we all need. A reminder that life, even the smallest life, matters. I didn't find her. She found me, and she trusted me. Please don't take that away from her. The judge looked at Hope. She tilted her head and wagged her tail. I rule in favor of Dr. Keller, the judge said. Hope will remain in his care. The courtroom burst into cheers. Adam knelt down. Hope jumped into his arms, and for the first time in months, he cried. The next morning, as sunlight spilled across the sky, the hospital parking lot looked just like it had the day before. Quiet, empty, still, but everything had changed. Dr. Adams stood in front of the veterinary clinic, holding the now clean, wrapped up little puppy in his arms. Her fur had been gently washed, and though she was still underweight, her eyes were brighter, more alive. There was even a faint little wag in her tail. And for Adam, the heaviness that had clouded his heart for months now felt like it had cracked open, just a little. The vet had confirmed it all, the malnutrition, the trauma, but most of all, the reason the puppy had come to him. She was following you for a reason, the vet said gently. She knew you were someone who would listen. Adam couldn't explain it, how a puppy with no words, no collar, no voice, had managed to cut through every barrier he'd built inside himself. But somehow she had. She hadn't needed to bark or whimper. She didn't need to make a scene. She just needed someone to see her. And somehow, Adam finally had. Later that week, as he walked back into the hospital with her nestled in his arms, wearing a tiny vest labeled Emotional Support Companion, people stopped and stared. Whose puppy is that? Where'd she come from? But Adam just smiled. She found me, he replied softly. And those simple words held all the weight of what they'd both been through. Because sometimes healing doesn't start with medicine. It starts with being seen, with being loved, with one broken heart recognizing another. And together, man and dog, they weren't broken anymore, just healing, one step at a time. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another amazing tale of hope and healing.